Hey, thank you.
All right. Have a good day now.
Bye-bye. All right, go ahead, Barry. Go. What were you saying?
Well, where we left off was you said, Barry, you don't want your property taxes to go up, but you
said that.
You said that, and I said it, and fine, so we agree on that. And then you said, what are you going to do about? And then the example you gave, which I think we ought to just take example by example, is well, these workers haven't had raises, and soon they're going to need raises, and that's going to mean it's more expensive. Well, listen,
they're going to want raises. I said.
How about this? How about this for that particular example that you're bringing forth? I didn't hear anybody demanding raises at these hearings. In fact, I heard.
You want me to go to the videotape? I can play a couple of them that did.
Demanding raises?
No, that said that they were trying to figure out how to get by right now with the rising cost of living, gas, groceries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. They've already engaged in quite a bit of sacrifice. That's correct. I didn't hear any demands for raises.
I've never had a problem with salaries. I've had problems always with benefits. But if you want to have that discussion, we can.
About what? I mean, about what? About the need for benefits?
I've never had a problem with their salaries, a lot of them.
Okay.
Well, government employees has always been about the benefits. It used to be you took a government job because the benefits were incredible and the pay was
the security.
okay.
The security was more sound than private. That's all. The security was good.
The benefits were great.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. The benefits,
okay.
The security.
But now we compare ourselves always to peer cities and peer counties and peer states. We never compare ourselves to the private sector. Is that a bad thing?
This is what we learned during these hearings, okay? If you pay an individual $9 an hour to do what you're now paying a county employee $35, there will be a very big difference.
Okay.
That's what we learned. That's what we learned if we listened with our hearts and our minds.
Okay, but you didn't listen further. Does it have to be $35 an hour? With the first year of employment, you get 9.75 days of sick, 9.75 days of annual leave, 13 holidays. First year of employment, 32 days off. A defined benefit. You know what a defined benefit is? Do you know the difference between defined benefit and match?
I do.
Or 401k?
Defined contribution.
In other words,
I do.
you put up 4%. If you make $50,000, you put up 4%. That means that's $2,000 of your salary. The county taxpayers from the general fund would match 18%. So they'd match $9,000 versus that $2,000, and it's a defined benefit no matter what the market does, no matter what the performance is of the market.
I understand, but you're saying this applies to new hires, right? New hires. That's what you're saying.
It applies right now to the existing base. Okay.
But also the people that you're hiring.
Well, what I'm trying to tell you is we quickly, and we've asked for the new hires to be immediately changed.
Okay.
But this isn't so much about the $35 an hour wage. It's about the benefits I just described.
All right, but I mean, listen.
And here's one thing I realize is not all of them take what I just described in terms of the time.
Listen,
but they get it. They don't lose it.
It may be. Hey, it may be perfectly reasonable. I don't know. Okay, I don't know the figures. You know them better than I do. Okay, I'm not agreeing with you, but I'm admitting I don't know. Okay, the figures may demand and make reasonable that new hires do not have that degree of benefit. I understand that very well. I understand that very well. That remains to be explored. I certainly didn't hear anything during these hearings from the incumbency that disputed that. I didn't.
There's very good suggestions brought forward.
Okay, so that's good. That's good.
Excellent.
That's
excellent.
Good. Now, but let's venture into this. Let's venture into this a little bit. Okay. The one thing I noticed at that July 12 hearing that I didn't see reported in the Frederick News Post, so I put it in a column, was the subject of what, in the county commissioner's view, is driving this. Okay, and what I picked up on was that what's driving this is Blaine's rather relentless invocation of the structural deficit. Mm-hmm. Now, what I stuck in the last column, Saturday's column, I stuck in this point. I said, and I'm prepared to back it up, the concept of structural deficit is misunderstood. It is very susceptible to being hyped, and it is being used, certainly in many examples we can cite, to serve a hidden agenda. Now,
no, the agenda that we ran on was to reduce the size of government. That was clear as a bell.
Okay.
In our advertisements, our pamphlets, our radio ads, our goal was reduce the size of government.
Three columns ago.
Now, let me ask you something. Now, again, it gets back to the same. I mean, we've had a lot of fun talking, but we've offered no real suggestions in terms of the fact that we have to admit, and Tommy Geyser sent this to me, and I tell you, it because I can't believe it, but he's right that we are addicts of wanting to always do the same thing over and over, thinking we're going to get different results.
Blaine,
Can we all admit that we cannot keep doing the same thing over and over?
All right, Blaine. But let's stay. Forget. Now, come on now. But let's stay on the subject now. Let's stay on the subject. Okay. First of all, remember now, the subject of this letter you just referred to is the deficit.
Sure.
Okay. And by the way, this was written in 1995, so it doesn't tell us specifically very much about what we're dealing with right now. So let's talk about what we're dealing with right now. Let's talk about, in this very example, what this structural deficit is.
Sure.
Okay. Now, this is a piece of information that perhaps you can dispute, but I think it's relevant. And that piece of information is as follows. In the last 11 fiscal years, though our budgets reflected a deficit, in 8 of them, when all was said and done, we had a surplus. That means that in the budgeting process, in 8 out of 11 years, we were conservative to the extent that we either underestimated income and or overestimated expenses. And that happened in 8 of the past 11 years.
So you're saying the taxpayers were defrauded?
What?
Well, it sounds like to me the taxpayers were defrauded then.
No.
The misinformation was used, and actually they were overtaxed, is what you're telling me.
No.
Who perpetrated this fraud?
That's got nothing to do with it.
Well, someone had to perpetrate a fraud.
No.
If you're telling me that the whole thing was BS.
Blaine, come on, quit. Come on.
No.
I know you've got listeners that like that, but it doesn't get us anywhere.
Barry, if what you're telling me is that everything was BS.
No, I didn't say that.
And a fraud was perpetrated.
Blaine, I didn't say everything.
Excuse me, Blaine.
Would you cut it out?
No,
I didn't say any of this was BS. I never even said it, didn't imply it or anything else. What I said was,
you did to me. You just said.
All right, well, let me clarify. Okay.
Yeah.
What I said was that as a result of quote conservative budgeting unquote.
Conservative budgeting or defrauding the taxpayers?
I call it.
What do you call conservative budgeting?
Let me tell you what the fraud is, okay?
What's the fraud?
You want to talk about fraud? I'll tell you what the fraud is. The fraud is looking at that and saying this is an emergency, we need to overhaul local government. That's the fraud, okay? It's not there's no fraud in conservatively doing budgeting.
Barry.
Excuse me?
Barry, you don't want to pay more taxes.
Well, what?
You don't want to pay more. Okay, so
I don't want to pay more taxes, and
how much
the way we are running things. Excuse me.
How much
the way
money,
we are running
how
things.
Much money?
The way we are running things right now. Okay. The way with the current tax rate. Okay. In the 8 of the past 11 years, excuse me, we've returned to surplus. That's a relevant fact. Now,
surplus or fund balance?
Let me finish.
Surplus or fund balance? Do you know the difference? Come on, let's get to the crux of this. Do you know the difference?
As I understand it. Excuse me. When an accountant says...
Don't take a bong hit and try to tell me you don't understand it.
Hey.
Do you understand the difference between fund balance and surplus?
Blaine, listen, man. I went to the July 12 hearing, and I listened to an accountant speak.
Yeah.
All right? Now, hold it a second now. Excuse me. He didn't take me through Accountant 101. This is what he did. He talked about a surplus. Now, if you want me to tell you what I think that means, I'll tell you what I think that means. But I don't want to be belittled in the process. Do you hear me?
Answer it.
Okay, here you go. Here you go. This is what a surplus is.
What is it?
You ready for it?
Sure.
Okay.
Tell me.
Revenues exceed expenses.
Okay.
How about that? Is that close enough for you?
Where do revenues come from?
They come from 3 things: property tax, income tax, and recordation.
So, okay, how much fund balance was used in the past several budgets? How much in transfers?
Yeah.
Transfers.
Hey, relax, Blaine. You got 3 out of 11 years. That's all you got.
I got 3.4 left.
Yeah. I'm not talking about. I wasn't talking about your term. I don't want to say something about that right now. Although it's probably, I got to stick it in here. Listen, man.
Stick it in.
And I meant this. This, Blaine.
Why?
I'm trying to work with you, Blaine.
I'm trying to work with you. I got my.
I said it before. And Frank played a song to that effect. Okay. I got high hopes for you. All right.
Okay.
But
I like Sinatra.
Okay, but you need to open your mind to some things. Okay. And you have been.
Well, thank you.
I don't know whether you've been manipulated or not. I haven't figured that out yet. Okay. But buying into all this, this right-wing propaganda and trying to apply it at the local level doesn't cut it. And that ought to be clear.
All right. We got to take a double break here, and we'll be back with more. Barry Kissin, Frederick News Post columnist. Alex Mooney will be joining us after the break. Frank's downstairs. He hasn't said much. Dixie Electric, the details make the difference. Savannah Institute, 301-668.